team that nobody wants to play. And that means that we have to impose our will to dominate the competition all the time.
It's all about what does it take to break you.
Yo, what's good? Welcome to Niggas Have Joint Sports Talk TV. Thank y'all for tuning in. Hey, today we're gonna be talking about the Michigan versus Ohio State versus Michigan game. Number 2 versus number 3. This game every year always means something big, and we finna get into it. I got a Michigan fan with me today, my man Jason. How you doing, man? What's going on with you?
Good, boss. Appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to talking to you.
Yes, sir. Been trying to do this since last season, but we could never, get it right.
Understood.
Yes, sir. So, first thing I want to ask you, man, when did you become a Michigan fan, and how did you become a Michigan fan?
Well, growing up in Ypsilanti, which is a suburb of Detroit about 30 minutes away, I grew up in that atmosphere. So as loyal as a fan as anybody from that area, regardless of where they went to college and all this and that, they're always going to support the Maize and Blue because that was the atmosphere that we grew up in. That's who we watched. That's who we followed, etc. But I've been a Michigan fan for, probably since like 91, 92, when Desmond Howard was doing this thing. I still remember the kickoff return, and that's when Keith Jackson, great play-by-play guy, introduced everybody as, hello, Heisman, and that was before he actually won the trophy. So, I mean, when you hear that, it's like, wow, how good is U of M? So, been watching them and following them ever since, and we've had they've had their dark years, especially when Lloyd Carr really left, because that's when the whole change really shifted. So we had our down years for a couple of years with Rich Rodriguez, who at the time seemed to be a good hire because of his offense, but it just didn't translate in the Big Ten, because Big Ten is typically the Big Ten style offense is pretty much your basic NFL type offense. And, when we got Rich Rod and the players that he had, it was just like a whole new thing. But I'll always be a fan of, Michigan, love them to death. And, it's been fun especially these last couple years. But with all the stuff that's going on right now, it's crazy. But I love my boys.
Yeah. Hey, so I'm going to ask you this. You said since 92. How old are you?
I just turned 40 this year.
Okay. Because, see, I'm 34, but I tell people too, like that's my family is Alabama. From my brother, my dad, most of my whole family, Alabama family. And I tell people that I remember that's how I became a Bama fan, because I remember '92 when we was playing the Hurricanes in the national championship. I remember the George Teague play.
Yep.
And they were like, "How you remember that? You was only like 2." I'm like, I said, it's a blurry memory, but I just remember when that play happened, my house went crazy. My brother and my dad went crazy. I just remember, and I remember that. That's why I want to ask. So I gotta address the elephant in the room before we get started. The sign stealing situation. What's your thoughts on that? How you feel about that?
So I'm going to be honest. The way I look at it, and it's unfortunate that it's gotten as far as it has, but the way I look at it is, we're not going to sit here and say that sign stealing is illegal, because colleges, if they can do it, they will do it, but it's to a certain extent and how you get caught. So a real good example is like in baseball with the Houston Astros in 2017, of how, they were banging under the trash cans, had certain cameras put up that no one knew about, and all that other good stuff. So, it's unfortunate that it's happening to my boys. Is it right? I'm not gonna say that it is, but I think under the circumstances that what's going on, it's a little crazy. But the only issue that I really have with everything is, if it's being drawn out because it's like the reports came out and then it was like, oh, they're cheating and this and that, whatever the case may be. But my thing is, where's the proof? Because Stephen A. Smith brought up a really good point. And I'll say this now, is that if the investigation is still going on, you can't put Michigan into the playoff regardless if we handle our business Saturday or not, because you're going to have that one team on the outside looking in to the point to where they're going to start saying, well, the investigation is not on. It's not done yet. So, the 3-game suspension that he got additionally, I mean, I'm okay with that to this point. Now, he's already served 2 games because he did the Penn State game. He's done the Maryland game. So now it's Ohio State. So if we handle our business, which I believe we will, there should be no more talk, no more. Well, I think he should sit out the college football playoff semifinal game and hopefully the national championship game if they get there, etc. But it's been a really interesting last couple weeks. But I mean, now it's all about the business. But I don't think they need Harbaugh on the sidelines per se, because those players are motivated, and you see that. You saw it in the Penn State game. You saw it in the Maryland game, even though the game got a little bit tight when it really shouldn't have.
Okay. So, how many? Y'all have had like 2 coaches get fired since then, right? Am I right?
Yeah. Well, okay. So, Brady Hoke stepped down. He was the next one. He was last before Harbaugh. And he actually wasn't going to resign. He got fired. But the last coach,
I'm talking about since the sign stealing 2 coaches on the staff.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So recently, I'm sorry. I thought you meant like head coach. No. So recently, it was the linebackers coach, because they were saying that he had data on his computer and he deleted it, so he had to go. And then the Connor Stallings guy, which I personally don't know who he is. I just know that there was talks that he was paid from the university for him, like certain boosters or whatnot. But it's just crazy. But yeah, but both those guys have been the only ones that have been let go at this point.
Okay. So another question before we get into the meat and potatoes. Jim Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about him right now? Do you think he returns with the team? Do you think this is like coming to an end of an era for him? Like, what's your thoughts?
So I'll say this, and I'm actually glad you asked that, because I'm going to spit you some honestly facts right now. When we first hired him, I understand why we did it, but honestly, I wasn't the biggest fan, only because of this. Michigan's reputation is all about the Michigan man. And what I mean by that is, if you look at their basketball team, who's their head coach? Juwan Howard, who was a part of the Fab Five era. So if we have the opportunity to bring in one of our own, then it's like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to be great, whatever the case may be. So when it came to Jim Harbaugh, my biggest thing with him was I thought he was more suitable in the NFL because of what he did in San Francisco. And even though the 49ers let him go for reasons I still don't get, it's like, okay, he could do this in the college game with us. We were excited because we finally got one of our own back to come back and coach from the football team and all this and that. But his first couple years, I knew it was going to be a challenge, because at that time, and here's what you got to remember: prior to the 2000, okay, actually, let me rephrase that. Prior to post-COVID, we haven't beaten our rival Ohio State in 10 years. The last time we beat them was 2011. So what does that mean for the Michigan team? Nobody's going to go to Michigan. Nobody wants to be a part of that losing year in and year out to your rival. So everybody was pushing to go to Ohio State, Penn State. You had Michigan State pulling for recruits and outside the Big Ten. So I'm not sitting here saying nobody wanted to go to Michigan, but at the time the program wasn't attractive enough for recruits to come in to go ahead and play at Michigan, play and be about something. Because when Harbaugh first started, he couldn't get a quarterback. It was always these transfer guys. You had Jake Rudock, who played at Iowa, then he went to Michigan. Then you had Shea Patterson from Ole Miss that still wanted to play, so he went to Michigan. So Harbaugh couldn't get his guy until he got McCarthy and McNamara. And so after COVID, the first game that we had in this is 23, so this would have been 2021, we actually beat them for the first time in 10 plus years. Now, Harbaugh was hired in 2015. So my biggest thing was at that time, and you're an Alabama fan, so I'm going to throw this in there. When you get hired at Michigan, you have one job: beat Ohio State. That's it. That's what fans want to see. That's what it's all about. The game, hence the term Michigan Ohio State, the game. So when it came down to him losing the first couple years, it was always, okay, well, he doesn't have his recruits yet. He can push for a little bit further, whatever the case may be. So when he went 0-5, honest to God, he should have been fired, because I was one of those people that said, you can't go 0-6 against your rival. I don't care who it is. Hence in Alabama, if you're the Alabama coach or you're the Auburn coach and you're losing for 6 straight years against your rival, the boosters, the alumni, the fan base, they're not gonna want to keep him there. So it's like, Harbaugh's case was, if he's going to leave, and keep in mind, like the last couple years, he was always flirting with NFL jobs.
Yes.
And it was always like, okay, are you leaving? Are you staying? What are you doing? And part of the problem that I had with that is you're not being committed to your players, your recruit.
Because as somebody outside looking in, I'm like, this dude always flirting with the NFL. Like, I don't know if he was playing mind games with Michigan or whatever, but I'm like, it was one year I really thought, I forgot what year it was, but it was one year. It was the year before y'all actually got to the playoffs. That year, before that year happened, I really thought he was going to go to the NFL, man.
Yep. So did I. And I think part of the problem with that is and see, that's why, honestly, now I'm a fan of college and NFL football, but I think one of the things that is hurting the college game, and I know recruiting is a little bit different now as far as when you can actually transfer, if not. But the biggest issue that I have is I just feel like you should not be talking to a college coach until after their season ends. Because in that atmosphere, when you've got guys talking about whether they're going to go, whether they're going to stay, and all this and that, it just turns out to be a big old mess, because that pretty much puts in the head of, oh, well, we can't do this. So I'll give you an example, not with NFL, but with college. Deion Sanders, Jackson State, you're playing for a college football, an HBCU national championship. And one thing that I did not honestly like that he did was after the SWAC championship, and honestly, I forget who they played. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he got on a plane and went to Colorado when the season was still going on, and told the players there that some of y'all are going to be here next year. You might as well travel and bring your guys and all that. That serves as a distraction to your current team, because if you're going to practice, you're pretty much like, well, he's not going to be here. I can slack it. I can coast it, do whatever. What's the worst he's going to do? Whatever the case may be is. So I just feel that overall that if the NFL is calling your name, okay. Now, regardless if that's on the hush hush or whatever the case may be, is fine. But I'm just one of those people that believe that when the season is over, then you can talk, because the distractions won't be in there as opposed to during the season, and it's going to have an impact on your players.
Yeah,
but to answer your question about Harbaugh, and I know I kind of went off course with that, but I'll say this: it won't surprise me at this point, after what's going on and all this and that, if he goes to the NFL, because more power to him. But I think with what he's got at Michigan and the future recruits that he has, something tells me deep inside that he's still going to stay, because it would take a huge deal for him to bulk for the NFL. Like I read a report today that the Raiders are heavily interested, and I know everybody's talking about Chicago, but Chicago is in a mess beyond what's on the field. I think it's going to take a lot more to actually pull him out of Michigan. But do I want to see him back? Absolutely. But I will tell you this: whoever the next coach is at Michigan, if Harbaugh leaves, I think they honestly need to keep it in-house, only because whoever you bring in for that job, it's going to be too much pressure, too much baggage, and everything else that comes with that.
Okay. Yeah, that's the best. I want to. Did you think he was going to the NFL? And I'm gonna say this too. I was saying this about Harbaugh, but he's a good example of, and this for all colleges out there that's impatient with the coaches that they hire. That is what can happen with Harbaugh if you give coaches enough time. What Harbaugh did, because I know both sides were flirting with. They was flirting with getting rid of him. He was flirting with NFL, and I can say if you give a coach enough time, when they both was flirting with the idea, the next year they get to the college football playoffs.
Right
now, have they did much in the playoffs? No, they haven't. But I feel like if programs would give college coaches more time, all college coaches don't deserve, but there's some coaches that you can see the potential, but they pull the trigger too fast. Yeah. But for some coaches, if you give them enough time, you can actually build something.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason and I'll say this, that's part of the reason what saved his job, only because when they beat Ohio State with Hutchinson and them boys, that was the start of what folks wanted going back to the BCS era per se, and all that. But it took that win for Michigan fans to truly get excited, because all we want, put it like this, at first, all we want to do was beat Ohio State. Like, my alma mater is Alabama State University. So if we go in the Classic and we beat A&M, it's a good.
You said Alabama State?
Yeah, Alabama State's my alma mater.
Okay.
Yup.
Word.
So it's like with us, there's only 3 games that really matter to us more than anything: Magic City Classic, Turkey Day, and if we're lucky, if we play in the SWAC championship.
Yeah.
Which hasn't happened for us since 2010. I know, because I was there at Legion Field. But when it comes to the games that you want to see win, it's pretty much a good year at that point. So Michigan, and everybody's like, Michigan Ohio State is the game, and I'm going to break down the rivalry for you as like Michigan, Ohio State, and Alabama and Auburn, because I'm going to give you my 2 cents on that per se. But for us, it's all about that game. So I'll put it like this: we've gotten to the college playoff the last 2 years, so it's not like if we do lose coming up, I mean, they're not going to fire Harbaugh, because back-to-back college football playoff appearances mean a lot. And the first year we went against Georgia, we just weren't ready. And I am proud to say this: I am not a fan of Michigan's schedule at all, year in and year out. And here is the reason why.
And I'm gonna tell you this. I'm a startup guy, but I respect everything. I'm not a big fan of y'all conference at all, period. I'm gonna just tell you, I'm not a big fan of, and it's because of the scheduling.
Right.
To me.
Right. So with that being said, I'm gonna throw this at you. Like, the biggest problem that I see with Big Ten teams against everybody else is because Michigan, their first 4 games are always going to be like, they're basically scrimmages pretty much. Because you're going against teams that you're favored by 20 or more points, or whatever the case may be. And I live in San Antonio, Texas, and there's a Michigan bar that Michigan fans pile up at just to watch our game, and everybody gets excited. Now, I'm going there this Saturday to watch Michigan Ohio State, but everybody be asking me, why don't you come every Saturday, whatever the case may be? And I'm like, because for me, it's not fun when you're the heavy favorite by 28 points and you're going somewhere to watch it. Now, if we're talking Michigan, Penn State, I get it. Michigan State, I get it. And I'm just one of those people that for their schedule, it isn't soft, absolutely. And I'll be the first to admit it. But it's starting to get, I know it's going to get better now, especially with USC, UCLA, and Oregon joining the Big Ten. So that's going to give it, a little bit more oomph. But if Michigan I think honestly, like teams like that, they should play start off with like an SEC component, whether if it's Kentucky, Tennessee, Ole Miss, whatever the case may be, because that competition is good for you to have. Because if you remember year 1 of the playoff when we went against Georgia, and I was the first one to say it, we don't have a prayer against Georgia because the SEC is a whole different breed of football, and it's different against the Big Ten. That's usually why when I have my bowl pick'ems, depending on how I've seen the teams play, if it's an SEC team against a Big Ten team, I usually go with the SEC school.
Yeah. I like that. I like your thoughts. I like your thoughts. I respect all that. Heck yeah. But the last 2 years, y'all beat Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
And you spoke on it a little bit. I know you had to feel bad. I know you had to feel great about that as a Michigan fan, because y'all finally got over the hump with that.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going into this year. Both of y'all are ranked 3-4.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts this year on the game?
Well, actually, correction. It's wait a minute. No, it's 2-3 because Ohio State is 2 and we're
2-3. Yeah,
yep.
You're right. My bad.
Yeah. So okay. So after doing some thinking, and I was one of those people that believed this earlier, but I was watching College Football Live today, and one of the people mentioned a very good point. Michigan has to win this game to really secure their spot in the playoff. And the reason why I say that is because, one, our only quality win up until this point has been Penn State. And that's a rank, and they were ranked, which you got that one rank in there, but Ohio State has had Notre Dame. They beat Penn State, and they got more quality wins than we do. So if we go undefeated, that's going to put our chances up even better. Now, at first, I was telling myself that if they were to lose, they would would have a shot, only because of the rankings of where they're at and when they lose, and they would probably be the best one-loss team in there. But you've got your Alabama, you've got Texas, so I'll put it like this. As far as the best one-loss team after this weekend will either be Michigan, Ohio State, in my personal opinion, but the committee is going to look at quality wins, strength of schedule, and all this and that. And if we were to lose, that's going to go against us 100%. So that's why if we handle our business like I believe we will, because we're playing at home, that crowd's going to be amped, that atmosphere is going to be on point, and the Michigan players are going to be motivated. It's going to be a really interesting game to watch. I think we'll take it. So if we win that and beat Iowa in the Big Ten championship, then yeah, we'll secure a spot in the playoff. And the reason why I want that more than anything, especially with all the scandal mess going on, is because you're not going to keep an undefeated Michigan team out You suspended Harbaugh for an extra 3 games on top of the 3 at the beginning of the year. So all in all, that's 6. So with him being out, the argument you can't say, well, they didn't do enough, whatever the case may be. And that's part of the reason why he accepted the 3-game suspension, because the agreement was if Harbaugh drops the appeal and takes a 3-game suspension, the Big Ten can no longer look further into the whole sign stealing stuff. That's going to be up for the NCAA, which I think is going to take a little bit more for them to look at whatever evidence they have and for them to make their call at the end of the day.
How do you think the NCAA is going to handle it? Do you think it's going to favor Michigan, or do you think they're going to come down on Michigan when they look further into it?
If they come down on them, they have to show a certain. They have to show the proof outside of what the linebacker had and whatever the case may be, and that's kind of the reason why I'm curious on what's taking it so long for them to find whatever evidence they can per se and all this and that. But now I think if anything, they're going to get a heavy fine. I'm talking like maybe 500,000, maybe even a million even. And I'm not going to say like, I'll put it like this. I think if you're going to punish them, you need to hit the pockets as opposed to a bowl suspension or whatever, because when you do that, you're punishing the players. And the worst part about it is this could go like to a couple years further back. And something that somebody had mentioned to me, which I didn't like, but it kind of made me think about, was we lose to Ohio State for like almost 10 years, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, we finally get the job done and we beat them. And then everybody's like, oh, well, how did y'all all of a sudden do it overnight and all this and that? And what you got to remember is this, and I love using this analogy. If you remember the first Michigan-Ohio State game in 2021 when we finally beat them, it was a close game at halftime, and then we ran away at the second half. That's not dealing with sign stealing. That's about making halftime adjustments and doing your thing and sticking with that. And then last year was the same thing. Last year, we were down 3 at the half against them. And then, if I'm not mistaken, I think we shut them out in the second half. So it was like, okay, what did we do to do that then? We just made the halftime adjustments and did what we had to do.
Okay. So, one of my questions, I noticed the last couple games, y'all ain't been past 7. That Penn State game, second half, y'all ain't been passing.
Yep.
Do you think they can hold up against Michigan? Ohio State?
Absolutely not. So I'll put it like this: and I was curious about that myself. Like, I thought JJ McCarthy, our quarterback, may have been hurt. They just kept that on the down low per se, or something like that. But you got Blake Corum, you got Donovan Edwards. So if you can make it work run the ball all day long and do what you have to do until you can finally stop it, or if not. But no, this is the game. It's not going to be like, okay, we'll hold off on the pass, we'll just run all day long. No, because they've got to beat Ohio State through the air. And I'm going to be real curious on what our defense does, because Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, that guy's a freak.
Yeah.
And I'll put it like this: if we can hold him to under 100 yards, which certain teams have done, then I like our chances. But the way he's been balling these last 3 or 4 games, it's been crazy. But to answer your question directly, no, the same way that you saw against Penn State, you're not gonna see that against Ohio State. It's not gonna be one-dimensional. JJ McCarthy's gonna be ready. Blake Corum's gonna be ready, and he's really gonna be the X factor, because you got to remember, he didn't play in last year's game, so He wants this. This is his final game at the Big House, and he wants to go out with a win. So he's gonna absolutely bring everything he's got.
Hey, chat, just let y'all know, I ain't ignoring y'all. I see y'all, man. I see y'all. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Make sure y'all hit this like button. Make sure y'all hit the like button. Because this is one of the things that I said when y'all did that against Penn State. For one, when Penn State played Ohio State, I made my mind up then that Penn State is just the third wheel to Ohio State and Michigan. Like they're just in the background of y'all. And I'm like, when y'all did that to them in the second half, I'm like, I don't think Michigan can beat no big team. Like they're not gonna beat Ohio State with just running the ball. They're not gonna be able to face a playoff contender with just coming out of the second half running the ball. So why do you think y'all haven't just been holding out on the passes as much? Because you said you thought he was hurt, but he's not hurt though, right?
Right. Well, he's not. I mean, but that's just what I'll put it like this. That's just one of those things where if not that they, I'm not gonna sit here and say give him a rest, but if he was having an off day, I get it. And see, that's the thing about JJ McCarthy. Like I love him to death. I think he's going to be a great NFL quarterback. As a matter of fact, I think he's going to be one of those guys because I know you got Penix at Washington. You've got he's probably like the third or fourth best quarterback in this class that's going to come out. So if he goes to a system where it will work for him, I think he's going to do good in the NFL. But to answer your question, I just feel that when you've got a good running game as we have, you don't necessarily need to throw the ball all over the place unless you absolutely have to. And that's one of the things about JJ McCarthy that people don't realize, because when he could go like 20 for 23 for like 215 and maybe a touchdown here or there, whatever case may be. But if you notice the games that he has struggled, it's usually because it's either a timing thing or he's getting blitzed and he just can't. It's just certain defenses he hasn't seen all year. Now, do I believe in him? Absolutely. And, it's going to be interesting because we saw like when it was him and Cade McNamara, everybody couldn't wait to see JJ play because you saw him go in for those package plays and he would just take the ball and maybe run or a quick drop back and a quick slant or whatever. But when you see him play now fully, it's like, hey, we finally got us a quarterback. We're going to see what he's like. Now, he played his tail off last year in the Ohio State game. I'm just hoping he comes back with that same performance.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you this. Mm-hmm. And I want you to try to be unbiased as possible with this. I ask the questions. How do you feel about Ohio State's offense versus y'all defense?
So I'm gonna answer this truthfully. The quarterback is a first year starter if I'm not mistaken. Their offense, for what I've seen, is good, but the thing against them is against Notre Dame, where the offense was tested. I'm not going to include Penn State because that I don't know what that game was. They basically had their way with them, but
it's just Penn State being Penn State,
right? Our defense is good. Yes, giving up 10 points. The average was 10 points a game. Yes, I know that slightly went up because of Maryland and all this and that. But I will say this: I love our defense. The only thing that I'm somewhat concerned about is they haven't seen an offense like Ohio State all year. And when you play in games like that, you are going to get exposed. So I think what's going to happen is there's going to be adjustments that's going to be made left and right. But in a game like that, you're going to have a top-notch offense against a top-notch defense. So we'll see what happens. Do I expect for them to play? Absolutely.
Okay. So I always ask the vice versa too. How do you kind of answered it though? How does Michigan offense? How do you feel about y'all offense against Ohio State's defense?
We've got to pass the ball. I'm not concerned about us running the ball because we have a two-headed monster. So Cornelius Johnson, number 6. Now, I haven't seen the Morgan Wilson hit that put him out against Maryland, but with Ohio State, I'm pretty sure he's going to be good to go. So with that being said, our passing game has to be there. If not, because we're not going to be able to just run the ball all day long on Ohio State. And what's crazy is, if you remember last year, I think we ran, if I'm not mistaken, it was over 300 yards against them. It wasn't in between the numbers type. It was because Donovan Edwards had a 75-yard touchdown run, and then I think he had like an 80-yard touchdown run. So we have to be able to run in between the tackles, which I believe we can do, but we have to be able to throw the ball. J.J. McCarthy has to have his best game of the season in order for us to beat Ohio State. If he has the type of game that he had against Penn State, our defense is going to have to bail us out amongst anything.
Okay. Hey, I got to ask you this too. This slipped my mind.
No,
the dude that's been stepping up in the place of Jim Harbaugh. Tell me your thoughts about him as well, man.
So, I know a lot of people were going crazy with the on-field interview after the Penn State game, and him crying all this and that. And I know Stephen A. and all of them at First Take, everybody was blowing up by talking about why they make it seem like they're the victims. What that had nothing to do with it. It was the fact because here I'm gonna spit you facts right now, because you gotta remember this. The suspension for Harbaugh was made when they were on the plane going to Happy Valley. It wasn't like they were loading the bus and they said, well, you can't coach, you're suspended. So they didn't get the notification until they got notification we're in the air, but when he couldn't coach, it was all on the assistant. So Harbaugh had these guys ready, and you got to remember, the first 3 games of the year, they went without him. So Harbaugh knew that I've got to get these guys ready for these 3 games and possibly any other games if I'm not on the sideline for. So the fact that they went out there and they coached a good game, they coached now. This is going to be their real test, because it's going to be Harbaugh's not going to be there. So it's going to be up to the assistants and the players and everybody else. So it's really about what those guys step in and do. And as I said before, if Harbaugh was to go to the NFL, you're going to hear a lot of Michigan folks just saying, well, why not we let the offensive coordinator step up and take this job, which I would really love, not only for the fact that he's a black man, but the fact that the opportunity will present itself to him if that scenario happens.
Okay. So if Harbaugh does decide to go to the NFL, do you really think they would give him a shot, or who do you think they would try to go target? If there's anybody in mind at this point.
Well, I'll put it like this, because it's probably like 10 coaches that you could possibly say, like left and right, whatever the case would be. I don't want Jimbo Fisher under no circumstances, because even from Florida State to Texas A&M, and everybody thought Texas A&M was going to be the next thing coming, and he's kind of fallen off completely. And keep in mind with that, because I know you're an SEC fan, but you got to keep in mind, when he got fired, he was 2 years removed from a 10-year, $93 million deal. So that turned into, okay, what has completely gone wrong in the 2 years to the point where we're going to fire you? But Michigan usually, I'll put it like this. Usually when they hire somebody, they want to kind of do it with somebody with some type of Michigan ties. And as I said before, I'm really not the biggest fan of that, only because you're looking for the next guy for Michigan to step up and take that job. Now, I'm gonna throw this at you for a little bit. Les Miles and LSU. The year that they won the national championship in 2007, and I was a junior in college when this happened. I'll never forget. It was right before. Okay, so we had just Lloyd Carr announced that he was going to retire. So it was who's next? Who do we want? And what was the connection that Les Miles had at Michigan? Les Miles played at Michigan.
Yep.
He was doing great at LSU. And the rumors were going crazy that Les Miles was going to leave LSU and go to Georgia. Leave LSU and go to Michigan and all that other stuff. Reports were coming out. And what stopped all that was that emergency press conference that he called, I think, an hour or two before kickoff against the SEC championship game against Tennessee. Because if you watch that press conference, his exact words were, I am not taking the Michigan job. I am not interested in the Michigan job. I love LSU. I want to be here for as long as I possibly can. I am not leaving Baton Rouge back home to Ann Arbor. And when that happened, everybody was like, oh, well, who are we going to get now in this and that? And then that's when it turned into, well, let's see who we can get. And that's when they went ahead and hired Rich Rodriguez from the University of West Virginia because of the spread offense that he had. The only problem was you went to a university, a program that was your basic NFL style offense, and the spread offense wasn't something that the Big Ten hadn't seen, so we didn't know how to run it. And your defense, you're using
and plus you got to think about the spread offense around that time of football too.
Exactly.
It wasn't really because it was just now people were just now laying their eyes on it. So you know it wasn't big for a lot of people trying to do that at the time.
Yep. Crazy.
Yeah, Rich Rod.
And if you remember, he didn't last 2 full years because they got blown out. I think in the Gator Bowl against Mississippi State, I think it was like 50 something to 17 or 10 or something, and they fired him before the day was over with. So,
Rich Rod. I remember one time they had rumors that he was coming to Alabama. But good old Nick Saban saved the day.
That's true. That's
thanks
sure.
To Drew Brees. I'm glad Drew Brees did never pass his physical to go to the Miami Dolphins because if he would have did that, we would have never had Nick Saban. So, tell me who are some of the X factors that you think will be for Michigan during the game?
So wide receiver, I'm gonna say Cornelius Johnson because Morgan Wilson. Like one thing at Michigan is when you wear number 1, that just shows that you're like you're like the go-to guy for us, and we've seen it over the years. Braylon Edwards, Devin Funchess wore number 1. David Terrell at one point. This is back when I was in high school, but you were number 1 at Michigan. You were for a purpose. So the X factor for us is going to be Cornelius Johnson, who is a senior, who is he wears number 6, and because they're gonna spy Morgan Wilson all day long, so that's gonna just open up the field for Cornelius Johnson. And if he can have the game like he had last year against Ohio State, because if I'm not mistaken, he either had over 100 yards or he was pretty close. He had a long touchdown pass, I think of like maybe 60 yards or something. So it's really gonna be based on him. And so he would have to be the guy because, as I said before, if we're going to beat Ohio State, we have to throw the football. If we can't do that, it could turn ugly.
Okay. So who? I'm pretty sure I know who you're gonna say. Who do you think X factor is for Ohio State?
So, you know what? Believe it or not, I'm not going to say obviously the answer would be Marvin Harrison Jr., but it's not. But the guy for me, believe it or not, is the quarterback. And I don't know his name off the top of my head. I really don't care.
Kyle McCord.
There you go. So the reason why I say that is because for him, with the JJ McCarthy has seen Ohio State already. He saw him last year as a full-time starter, and he saw them as a as a backup and all that. So this guy is seeing Michigan for the very first time. So if he wants to make his mark and go out and beat us, whatever the case may be, kudos to him. But it's gonna have to be outstanding quarterback play from him in order to for them to make it a game and for them to beat us. But it should be fun. It should be fun.
Okay. So that's what I like for you to do, if you can.
Yeah.
Go and give me your prediction. How do you see this game going? Both sides, the game going, and the score prediction, if you have one.
So obviously I'm rolling with us, obviously, but if I had to say my thing right now, I'm gonna say Michigan 31, Ohio State 27.
Woo.
I don't think this game is going to be a blowout because I think it's because it's too many things involved to where it is a blowout. And it's like last year how Michigan just did away with them in the second half. That's what Ohio State's going to be thinking about. So they're going to be thinking, okay, we just got to play with them for 4 quarters and make the best out of that. But Michigan's biggest thing is going to be, let's win one for Harbaugh. He's not here. We know he should be here. All the energy, and we're playing at home. Atmosphere, crowd, everything's going to be jacked into it.
I will say this too. I'm very impressed with how Michigan players have been keeping their composure, keeping it together, and still winning these games without, without this distraction that's been going on. Mm-hmm. Because with most programs, this is a big distraction and whatever. The spotlight is on y'all, but they are able to hold it together on their sideline, keep playing football, and still in the playoff talks right there.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I gotta congratulate them for that. My overall thoughts. I do think it'll be a close game.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion, I think Ohio State has more of the passing advantage, and I think that will wear down eventually on them. They have a pretty decent run game, but the thing about Michigan, I cannot deny that running back duo they have. Mm-hmm. That running back duo will run you crazy if they get it. It will give a defense fits if you can't stop it.
Yeah,
but my overall thoughts, I don't have a score prediction. I do think it's going to be a close game, like your score prediction was. I do think it'll be something real close out there. But my man said Ohio State is a one-trick pony, and that might be true. And I am not high on Ohio State quarterback play versus what I have been seeing in the past, but I think it's gonna be a little ticked off. But coming down to Michigan, man, that thing gonna be hard, bro.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, this is one of these football games that I like to look at as a football fan, because I'm a football head, man. So these one of these games that I'm gonna be tuned into before I Iron Bowl, and I get an edge to Ohio State. Honestly, it don't matter to me. I just need one of y'all to lose so we can get somebody out of this extra playoff spot. But
well, you know what? I'm gonna actually. I'll say this now, with you being a Bama fan, and I know, and trust me, I lived in Alabama for 15 years. I was in the atmosphere for the Iron Bowl, and I get it. But one thing that I will admit to is this: when everybody talks about what is the biggest rivalry in college football, the reason, now I will admit, for me growing up in Michigan, it was always Michigan, Ohio State as the game. That was all that was the only game that mattered. So it was like nobody is going to be doing nothing else but watching the game. But when I got to Alabama, now keep in mind, now this was 2002. I don't recall who the coach was. Shula came after, but Saban didn't get there till 7 years after, so I get it. But I will say that the difference to me between those two games is this: Michigan, Ohio State, we hate each other. That's not saying that Alabama and Auburn, they don't. But in the North, in the South, it's kind of a really, really different thing. And I'm gonna share this little story with you real quick. So in my working days, because I work at hotel hospitality, I worked at the Renaissance in Renaissance Hotel in Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay.
And the first year that I worked, we were the host hotel for Auburn football games. And every time when Auburn would come in, we would always have to seclude ourselves, or, you know, we would have to stand against the wall, whatever the case would be, and the players would come walking in. And this was and the first year was Cam Newton's year when they ended up winning and all that stuff. So one of my friends who was a diehard Alabama fan, the players are walking through us trying to get to the elevator in the back, and this guy had a Alabama t-shirt, and he opened up his work uniform and stood out there like this, and he's standing while the players walking through, and I'm looking at this guy like, if you trying to add fuel to the fire, you're doing a real good job, my friend. And you know, the games that y'all have had against Auburn, now don't get me wrong, they have been some classic games that, you know, and I hate to bring this up, but the comeback, the kick six, they've been great. But the difference for me is usually, like the last couple years, especially for Michigan, Ohio State, the game, it hasn't had national championship in you know, the game hasn't meant, you know, winner goes to the national championship like Auburn, Alabama does in the Iron Bowl, which has had more and all this and that. There have been some memorable games. But when you're talking to me, who is from the North, from Michigan, born and raised, I will always say Michigan, Ohio State is the better rivalry because of the atmosphere that I grew up in. But when I got to Alabama, I understood what, you know, the Iron Bowl was all about. And what was so crazy to me about that rivalry was you weren't doing anything that weekend. If you were working, if you were you wouldn't even see folks in the street. Every like, you go to any sports bar, whatever the case may be, you're not gonna, like, if you go to Buffalo Wild Wings, you're not gonna see like this game and this game and this game,
nope.
And then Alabama. All the TVs and all this and that's going to be on Alabama.
Yeah, that's facts. And see, with that, with this rival thing, yes, that is a big thing. That, don't get me wrong, Michigan and Ohio State, that is, listen, that is huge. But I think it's a region thing. If you up there, that's that. Down here, we hate Auburn just as much as y'all hate Ohio State.
Yeah.
But it's one of them things when you talk about the biggest rivals in college football, I believe both of them falls on the list.
Yeah.
And go back to what you said about it doesn't really have any playoff meaning or whatever. But when Auburn, Alabama play, you can throw all that Alabama undefeated, Alabama lost one game, Auburn sucks. You can throw all that crap out the window, because just a couple years ago, we was down there in their stadium, like we'll be this year, and they took us to 3 overtimes. Auburn have no business taking us to 3 overtimes.
You know what was so, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm gonna tell you what was so crazy. So I was at the time, Michigan, Ohio State had played first, and then I was actually out Christmas shopping at the time, because I told myself that Alabama was going to have their way with Auburn, and it really wasn't going to be something like really worth watching. And then I'm listening to the game on my satellite radio in my car, and I'm just like, this thing is real close, wherever the case may be. And then when I heard what happened in the final minute, I'm like, nah, I gotta pull over somewhere and actually so I pulled over to like some sports bar or something like that, and I'm watching it, and I'm just like, I just can't believe they let these boys hang in there, like they actually had a shot of winning this thing.
Yeah, and this was with a banged up second string quarterback.
Yeah.
Like it just like that's why I tell my Bama people we can't overlook it. Like it's easy to want to after they lost to New Mexico State by 20-some points last week. It's easy to want to, but if you know, like I know, this is one of the things that you can't overlook this game. You got to take this game just as serious as SEC championship game.
Exactly. Yeah. Now let me and Ashley, you know what? I want to ask you something with because Bama's ranked. Their rank, is it 7th or is it 8th?
8th.
Okay. So I think what y'all need to do we'll put it like this, because it's going to be y'all in Georgia in the SEC championship again. And if I'm not mistaken, this is like what, the 4th time y'all met in 5 years or something like that?
Something like that.
So here's what's crazy. Let's say hypothetically, y'all beat Georgia, right? And win the SEC. Do you put both Alabama and Georgia in? Or what do you think it's going to take to see Alabama in the college football playoff?
I think us beating Georgia should hold weight because they're the number 1 team.
Right.
And you got to look at ever since our one loss, we won. And of course, we're a different team from the last time we lost to Texas.
Right.
In my opinion, if Georgia so happened to lose, I think they should both be in there. But that might be an SEC bias thing, but it's like, how can you drop the number 1 team so low after losing to, yes, we're ranked number 8, but I think that's
see what's funny about that, and see, this is where the thinking comes in, because I'm not saying that can't happen, but the question is going to be is, what do you do with the Washingtons? What do you do with the Oregons? What do you do, because pretty much because Georgia would fall down okay, for example, let's say if y'all beat Georgia, they're at 1, which means they would probably fall as low as 3 or possibly 4, which would mean if y'all handle y'all business against Georgia, then where are you going to put them at, as opposed to a 1-loss team that's in it, as opposed to so it's going to be a very, very interesting 2 weeks. But the one thing I love about college football, and I will say this, the best week of college football always is rivalry week, which is this weekend coming up, and championship Saturday.
Yeah.
Because all the scenarios and the dominoes are going to fall into play and all that other stuff. And to be perfectly honest, I can't remember the last year was this much crazy, because I don't have the rankings in front of me, but you got to remember, so Georgia against Alabama in the SEC. You got Michigan, Ohio State still trying to figure, who's in that one. And then you got teams like Washington and Oregon who are playing each other for the Pac-12 championship.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Florida State, who just lost their quarterback to a gruesome injury. If they beat Florida, which Florida isn't all that this year, but if they beat Louisville in the ACC championship and they're undefeated, it's like, hey, we got to put them in there. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens and how they base it. But I think for Alabama fans out there, the first thing y'all have to do is y'all have to beat Georgia. Y'all have to beat them.
Yes, that most definitely. And this is what I tell Alabama fans.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm going to throw this in there. Believe it or not, because of what y'all talked about. Y'all have to win these next 2 games, because if y'all wet the bed against Auburn, it's a wrap at that point.
Oh, most definitely.
It's a wrap at that point. Y'all can beat Georgia by 2 touchdowns in the SEC championship game, and they'll probably put them in a New Year's Day bowl, if anything. But
and that's what I tell Bama fans. They're like, let's not look ahead, because we have 1 loss on our record, so we got to take every game serious. And I was talking this last week when we played Chattanooga. take it serious. Like, yes, I figured that we was gonna do that with Chattanooga, but take it serious. Yeah. And what me saying that, I think it's more of us fan bases that look ahead. I don't think any of these teams per se do that. I think it's just more of us fan bases that probably jump the gun on some of this stuff. But go back to, you mentioned Florida State. And this is my thought, and it might be, and I'm pretty sure it's an unpopular opinion. I don't think Florida State should have dropped. Me personally, because I think about this one thing that happened.
Okay.
Yes, we think about, well, they don't have Jordan Travis, they might be trash, but it's one of the things we don't know. Because I think about 2014, we played Ohio State. Ohio State had a third-string quarterback. They beat us in the playoffs and went to the national championship and won it. So I'm like, until they lose, like until they prove otherwise, I think they should be there. But that's just my thoughts, though, man.
But you know what? I'm gonna throw this in there. I honestly wasn't surprised that Washington jumped Florida State, and here's the main reason why. Because when you look at the games that Washington has played, the ranked opponents that they beaten them. So it's like the game against Oregon State, and if I'm not mistaken, I think they were down at one point, and they got it together last quarter and a half or whatever the case would be is, and they won. So I get it in that circumstance, but that just makes it look that much better for Florida State, because it's the same way with you can tell. If they handle business against Florida and beat Louisville in the ACC championship game, you have to put Florida State in there regardless. It doesn't matter what number, you have to put them in there, because I'll say this at the end of the day. There is no way that there's going to be an undefeated team this year on the outside looking in.
Yeah, facts.
And all these one-loss teams in there. So if you're undefeated, you're in at that point. So that means if it's Florida State, if it's Washington, if it's the winner of Michigan, Ohio State, and Georgia, if Georgia and Alabama, well, you know what I'm saying. If Georgia beats then that's your Final Four right there amongst those teams. And what's that going to say about the one-loss teams? That's like, well, we may have lost this much, whatever the case would be, because there was a lot, and you got to remember, there was a lot of people last year that kind of felt that TCU shouldn't have been when they lost to Kansas State in overtime. But the reason why that didn't happen was because it was a field goal game in overtime. Yeah. If it had been like 10 points or more, then that would have been like, okay, this was a team you were supposed to beat, whatever the case may be. And there's something else I wanted to bring up because you're a Bama fan. Because this is why I don't like what happens with your guys' schedule. I get it that you guys are SEC, but the thing that I've never been a fan of is when you because Auburn does it too, so I can't give y'all the full nod, but I don't like it when y'all play like Chattanooga, North Alabama, those schools the week before Iron Bowl, because personally for me, I would love to see Alabama and Georgia play during the regular season. And everybody's like, well, how could y'all do that? That's easy. Take out one of those games that y'all play where you're going to annihilate the opponent, or if not, and just get the Georgia mix in there. Because I personally feel that in the SEC, you should play everybody. And I know that's not the case, but, Alabama and Georgia in the regular season, I mean, we haven't seen that in, I don't know how many years it's been.
Yeah. It's coming. we got them this year, but yeah, but I hear what you're saying, though. But it's one of them things that I realized, too. I'm like, all of us, all conferences, we all end up playing a cupcake team that we ain't got no business playing against. But I realized that, too, that's out of all of our control, because we do it in all conferences. All conferences, we do it, but it's like, but it's one of the things. Yeah, I don't know. I'd rather. Wait, Michigan, USC.
Wait. I want to paraphrase what you said. I'm not saying that all conferences they shouldn't do that. What I'm saying is is to play them, to schedule a game like that late in the year. Now, that's not me saying go ahead and slide that game against Georgia and then play Auburn. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is take out one of those games in the beginning and flex the schedule to where you play like Georgia like late September or or something along those lines.
I hear you. I got you. I got what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. But you know what? I know this is supposed to be about Michigan, but I got a question for you because you're not gonna like this opinion for what I say. But how many years do you think Saban got in Tuscaloosa before he calls it a career?
He's waiting until my 7th grade graduate college. I'm joking. I'm joking. Honestly, I really don't know. I really don't know. This is me guessing. I'm gonna give him to like 25, 26. Yeah, 25, 2025, 26. But that's just me guessing. I don't know.
Now I'm gonna spit some real logic in here because Bama fans don't want to hear this, but it's gonna be facts. So you gotta think about this for a minute. When Bear Bryant called it a career and all that, Bama was like not the dominant, not the going out there winning national championship every year, whatever the case would be. They weren't like how Bama was, when Saban got there. So what I'm saying is this: when Nick Saban calls it a career, when he's done, I don't care if y'all get Dabo from Clemson, which I don't think he should leave Clemson for Alabama because he's already made his legacy mark at Clemson. But everybody wants to see him back at Alabama because he played at Alabama.
I'm telling you right now, majority of the Alabama fans don't.
I believe it. But here's what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is what y'all are gonna be like competitively when Saban calls it a career, because no program can stay on top like you guys had for like years and years. And the reason why I'm saying that is because when Bear Bryant called it quits, Gene Stallings got y'all the championship in '93. So that's like 10 plus years to where you were back on there. And it was real funny to me because I'll say this. When I first got to Alabama wasn't, I'm not saying that you guys were good, but you guys were talking national championship. Y'all did.
Oh, no, most definitely.
Right, until Saban got there.
I remember that. I remember that down period so much.
Yeah.
Like I do tell people, I said we did have some good seasons in that time frame.
Right.
That a lot of people do not remember. You know what I'm saying? But no, we wasn't playing Bama football like we are now. Most definitely.
Right. So my point is that the Bama fans have to come to an understanding that at some point the program is gonna go on a decline, and that's only because Saban, the next coach isn't going to be a Saban clone and all this and that. So that's where the patience has to come in and all this and that, and that's what I worry about, because as much as you hear Roll Tide like all the time and all this and that, I still see it on my Facebook, and I'm like, I keep telling myself, y'all do realize that Saban's gonna call it a career at some point, right? And y'all ain't gonna be as dominant as once y'all were. So y'all gotta get ready to come to that realization and all this and that.
It's for me personally. Still gonna be Roll Tide, baby.
Oh no, absolutely. And I'm not saying that. Yup, I'm not saying that at all. I agree with you.
But no, I hear what you're saying though. Like, it's gonna be a lot of impatient fans. There's gonna be a lot of impatient people dealing with the program, and it's gonna be kind of unfair to the next coach because they're gonna be looking to fill him shoes. And this is something I said years ago, that whoever comes don't need to try to be Coach Saban. Do your best. Do the best that you can do. Like, don't try to fill his shoes. Don't try to do this. You know what I'm saying? hold your program until your team to a certain standard, but do what you do best and hope for the best comes out of it. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully the person they get can still recruit. Hopefully he can motivate kids to be better men than just football players, and like you know what I'm saying, the life aspect, and just hope for the best. But hey, it's one of them things that until it happens, I'm riding away, baby.
Yeah. But and you know what? You know what's also crazy, because I don't know if you've seen this too on Facebook or not, but the thing that drives me wild is I'm just trying to understand the whole love affair for Jalen Hurts, and trust me, I'm not sitting here saying that Jalen Hurts isn't good, he can't play, whatever the case would be. But my thing is this: Tua Tagovailoa is in the NFL as also. I see this guy get no love from Alabama fans at all. At all. All
yeah,
my
I can't even explain that one, because I love watching me some Tua. I love my Tua.
Yup.
So I can't explain that from anybody else. Yeah,
I just don't get it, and because as much as you Alabama fans got to remember that game against Georgia, Jalen Hurts probably had his worst game ever against Alabama, and you go to the bullpen and you get Tua, and he comes in there, and put it like this: every single person that saw Tua what he did knew that he was going to be the starter going into next year. Everybody knew it.
Basically, pretty much. Pretty much. And that's why I like Jalen so much, though, because he came out and said, he was like, people say Coach Saban did wrong, but he was like, no, I did this to myself. I put myself in this situation. Mm-hmm. He didn't pout about it. All he did was sit back. When the opportunity came for him again, right. he was ready for it. And he didn't pout about it. He got better. So that's why I like Jalen so much. But I love myself too, though. I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, I was sad to hear that he should just retire. I was sad to hear that. I was like, man, he got one more. Give him one more chance, man. But he's doing good. I love me some too.
And you know what was so crazy about that? I thought that was a bit of a stretch, because he was still young, and I know concussions are a big deal, but my biggest thing was, I was like, just give the man some time to rest his head and breathe and all this and that. And, you know, he passed neuro test and all this, that it'll be all right. But now I'm not going to lie, whoever that team doctor for the Miami Dolphins was, he should have been fired, because you saw that hit against Buffalo and his head snapping back the way it did, and he takes 2-3 steps and goes to a knee, and you say that it's a back issue, and then not only that, he comes back and plays that game, and then comes back 4 days later and plays on Thursday night football.
That was unacceptable.
Like, no.
I agree. I agree. Hey, man, but I gotta wrap this thing up. I wish I could stay on here longer. Definitely, I'm gonna be in contact with you more. If you just, I want you to wait for a little bit. I'm gonna talk to you in the background for a little minute. Okay. But I'm about to end the show. Hey, everybody, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. My guy Jason, thank y'all for showing some love. Michigan guy, he got Michigan, of course, and I got Ohio State. You know, but hey, that's why that's why they play the game on Saturday, and that's why we watching to see the outcome. But appreciate y'all for turning in. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know y'all thoughts in it, and roll Tide.
We'll see y'all next time. Appreciate you having me on, boy.
Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, sir. I'm out.